Apocalypto! Apocalypto! If the mind is not prepared, if the mind is not prepared, listen, there's a lot of stuff going on around the world. And we can be in our little bubbles, right? Human beings, we we're focusing on our families, on our communities, on our state, our country, nation. We're not usually thinking about Billy Bob and James down the road, or the cat down the road. We're not primarily focused on each other, because the society is built in a way where we are very self-absorbed. But I will say this, I really dislike the term conspiracy theorists or conspiracy theory, because there's nothing wrong with someone who it has a negative connotation to it, because to conspire is to go against something. Conspire, right? You can inspire or conspire. Inspire is you are bringing in good energy. Con is you're going against something. And so to conspire, to conspiracy, to create conspiracy against something is to go against. And I don't like that. I'm not going against something. It's an observation outside the box, outside the program, outside the, what you guys like to call matrix, I call patrix, outside of the patrix program, the paradigm. And when you start questioning the paradigm, then you're labeled a conspiracy theorist, because you're going against the grain, and that threatens them. It threatens the shadow elite. So Apocalypto, why would I ever name this video Apocalypto? Well, because it's apocalypse. Apocalypse is the end of the world, right? The end of the world. It's the end of the world for somebody. And I mentioned in the video previous to this one, I believe, where, the end of the world for someone could be death. The end of the world for somebody could be a loss of a child. The end of the world for somebody could be a disease, a diagnosis, incurable. The end of the world could be someone losing their business or their job. The end of the world could be someone who their car breaks down. They can't fulfill their duties to get A, B, C, D, E, F, G done. Like, the end of the world, apocalypto have many different forms. But when you address or you try to observe the societal shifts that are taking place, the cultural shifts that are taking place, the agendas that they are beginning to implement in the past 20 or so years, as far as immigration goes. Interesting times indeed. I've mentioned before in some videos that the Western world will fall, and of how we know it, it will fall. All empires built on blood, war, trauma, rape, destruction. In order to, when you build an empire based off of those practices, you must commit those practices to keep the empire alive. There's only remnants of ancient Kemet, ancient Sumeria, ancient Rome, and ancient Greece. The Byzantine empires. Their statues and their stones are the only things that exist. And their ideologies that they left behind, which a lot of our political government and our government, base a lot off of ancient Sumeria and Greece or Greek and Roman empires. Listen. The only way to prepare for the end of the world is the mind. right? Don't get too, you know what COVID taught me, the whole pandemic, pandemic. What that taught me, when I had to stand in line, a food line, for the first time in my life. When I say food line, I guess I should be careful with that. I'm not saying standing in line for food well to go grocery shopping, because they were trying to control how many people were being let in to the store. It was a mess. It was a chaotic mess, but it was really very strange standing there and being told how long we had in the store and not able to touch things. It was just weird. It was a weird, odd time in Arizona. And that's when, I always had an interest in living on homesteads and agriculture for a while. And that's what I turned to. Why? Because I told myself this: anytime, what I saw in the grocery stores when I went grocery shopping during COVID, it was scary. Within a week, produce was no more. Sanitary napkins for women, there were none. Obviously, the whole toilet paper phenomenon was really weird, because why not just use washcloths, wipe your ass that way, and wash the washcloth? I don't know, I just thought it was really weird why everyone went for toilet paper when I don't know. I grew up in a culture where you use washcloths to wipe your ass. So so it's why the toilet paper thing didn't make any sense to me. But what was scary was seeing those empty, wow, ladybug. I am just getting a lot of visitations right now. Hey, ladybug spirit. And then I had a true bug spirit. Okay. I see you. It was odd, but I told myself, if it was going to be like that and things were going to go down like that, one thing for darn sure was that I was going to eat. And growing up in a household, my mom was always an avid gardener. I mean, she just has a green thumb, and so does my aunt. My aunt literally has a whole homestead. They live down south in Georgia, but a whole running homestead. Started off as a small little floral garden, and now they're selling eggs. They're raising, they have koi fish. They got it's beautiful. I haven't been down there yet. It's pitiful, I know, but I haven't been down there. But anyway, during COVID, I said, I know one thing I'm going to eat, and I know one thing, I have the work ethic to help to do a work exchange and barter and stuff. So that's what I did for a year and a half. I hopped from farm to farm to farm, and Rashida was gonna eat, so one paid the other. I think the first one was in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I spent about 3-4 months there before moving closer to Santa Fe, New Mexico, and I helped a couple, they're nurses actually, so right into the world. I was living with nurses, and they had literally ran their own vegetable garden, and they're up in age a little bit. I mean, they're in their mid-60s at the time, and so they needed help. And I did a work exchange. Sure did. But I thought to myself, as I was breaking bread with these wonderful people who opened their land to me, opened their home, I think the deal, they gave me free room and board, but on the weekends we had to make our own meal, which that was fine with me. I saved a lot of money. I was able to gather myself, because the world was just in shock and just what are we gonna do, and everyone was freaking out, and they're like, we need a vaccine, and I'm like, Anyway, so but it dawned on me that as prepared to a certain extent as this couple was, and even society, the most, and I would watch videos on like preppers, people who live off the grid, and who have their own, they use solar powered, electricity and all this other stuff. I thought to myself, what about the mind? How prepared are they in spirit? What about their frequency of their consciousness? You can have all the things. You can have a multi-billion-dollar hole in the ground, right? Where a lot of billionaires and millionaires, they go and they buy it. That's why they're buying up all this land, by the way, for what's to come. Which, it's not time yet for me to make that video. But 2029, okay? Anyway, yeah, okay. I'm being told to not share that yet. It's not time yet, so I will share that in due time, but not right now. Like I said, I'm a spiritualist, and I'm able to see beyond the veil, if you will, but another video. Anyway, they're buying up all the land, they're buying up all the, the farming, and, there are even theories out there that say that they are causing fluctuations in the weather that's causing people to, to lose their homes, their properties, their businesses, and then they swoop in and take the land from them. And that way, because they're manipulating the weather. It's interesting stuff. Interesting stuff. If it sounds too woo-woo for you, this video probably isn't for you. But, you can have all the things. You can prep and prepare all you want. Right? But is your mind ready? Is your mind ready? That's the first thing to go. And for those who have a mental strength and who are mentally prepared, that's the last thing that goes. Truly, if you're experiencing your own apocalypto, your own apocalypse, right? And you are a very centered, present human being, and you are usually, psychologically balanced, if you will, the last thing that will go is your mind. Everything else will be stripped from you. The ability to be mobile, have a car, running water, electricity, food, a way to clothe yourself, to have access to clean water, to keep up your hygiene. All those things can go, but if you stay sharp and prepared in your mind, it'll literally will be the last thing that goes. So, what I notice in chaotic situations with, human psychology is the first thing that leaves is sanity. People go completely mad. And we've all been psychologically programmed. That's why they have Black Friday. Black Friday is a ritualistic psychological program every freaking year, specifically in the U.S. It pertains specifically in the U.S. Every year, you're getting up at 2, 3 a.m. in the morning, and you're sitting out in lines to go consume and to go spend money. And you're standing in line with hundreds, dozens and hundreds of other people just to grab some cheap crap made in China that will be 50 or 75% off for a couple of hours. And when they burst open those doors, you run in, trampling on everybody. Everybody's trampling on you. It's a psych op. That's what it is. It's a study. Okay, let's see. In 2015, how many deaths, how many incidents during Black Friday, during the insanity, the madness that we created? Preparing the mind. How does one do that? Take away what makes you feel comfortable. That's how you can prepare yourself. Take away what makes you feel comfortable. your iPhone, your Wi-Fi, running water. I've been without running water. Growing up, my mom wasn't able to pay a bill or two. We went without running water or electricity. I'm not ashamed of that. I'm not ashamed. Nope. I've got nothing to hide with that. I don't shame my mother for that either. She did the best she could. She had multiple children. A couple of them were not even of her own flesh and blood. Blood, yes, they were related, but still. I'm just saying, like, I during my experience working or living on homesteads and farming, especially in Wisconsin, for a time when I was up there, they didn't have running plumbing or normal plumbing. I had to poop in a bucket, sure did, and it was in like a sawdust, and actually the smell wasn't bad. I didn't believe it at first because my grandmother, she would spend summers on her grandparents' farm, and she would tell me stories how they would have an outhouse and how it was almost pristine and it was really very efficient and no odors, and how they would put, spray the lye powder to cover up any odors, and then every so often they'd dig a new hole and they'd move the outhouse to a different location. And yeah, and so in my experience, I stayed in a tiny house in the middle of a very insect infested area. So there was a lot of Japanese beetles and big spiders, and it was a very swampy, wet, moist environment compared to the desert atmosphere. And so yeah, that was an experience, and I had to dump out my own pee and poop because there wasn't any plumbing. And I had to, wash my clothes in a bucket by hand. And, I hang dry most of my clothes anyway. I'm very adaptable. That's one up, I will say. If anyone came to visit my house, it would not be very decorative. It wouldn't feel homey. A lot of love, but it wouldn't feel, that nice, I do like to burn incense and candles to make my home smell nice, but it's not like, there's not sofas and throw pillows and random ass pictures hanging up everywhere. If anything, I have my own artwork hanging up. But back to my point, you prepare the mind by taking what makes you feel comfortable. I just got rid of my mattress. Ask me how many times I've tried to purchase a full bed for myself, and it just ended up either getting it away or giving it away or pitching it. Because I don't believe in sharing, like, just donating mattresses and beds. I don't know how anybody can do that. It is disgusting. Just, physically and energetically, it's like people do things on beds. And I've seen people buy beds and mattresses off people. It's just gross. It was a thing back in college. Anyway. But yeah, I just, I'm sleeping with my cot on the floor. And obviously my body is adjusting. She's like, F you, what the hell is this? Why are you doing this? I got accustomed to our little foam mattress. What's going on? And I've done it before. I got the mattress. I got back into the whole, mattress thing because in order to make my significant other at the time more comfortable. Right? Like, it just, that's why. And I just, after that breakup, I just kind of was like, oh, well, let me get my own mattress for myself. And I'm like, and something in me is like, get rid of it. You need to live very simply. And I'm like, why? It's like deeply ingrained in my intuitive nature right now. For the past several years, it's like, live simple. Don't be extravagant. Live simply. Get little things that brings you joy, that makes you feel nice or makes you look nice, but keep it simple. And I'm obeying that. I'm being obedient of that guidance from the Most High, from Source, from the womb of all creation. But that's what you can do to prepare for Apocalypto. And even then, if you, and it's just a practice, you don't have to go without, the things that bring you comfort all the time, but it is very important to strip away the things that bring you comfort and just go without for a little while. Because we live in a world where we're becoming so dependent on the digital, our devices. It is scary. Kids don't know how to tell time. People don't use maps. They can't tell you where's north, south, east, west. It's the AI does everything for you now. It's deeply, the software is embedded in the new iPhones. You have virtual reality. It's like if they really turned off the electricity, they turned this shit off. Ooh. And listen, I grew up where sometimes we went without running water for a week or two. Right? Or electricity. We went a while. We used candles. So I've been exposed and broken in a bit. Farm life doesn't scare me. Okay? Not really. Especially if you dealt with roosters personally. Get to know your farmers. Help out the homesteaders. Because that's one misconception I have noticed. That YouTubers, content creators that show their homestead life. Oh, I don't rely on the system. I'm not using the system. I'm free. Do you understand how much work it takes to maintain acres of land? How much it takes, how much money it costs to make sure that your animals are fed and that they're healthy so that they can produce the meat that you're going to use and slaughter to feed your family? People, do they understand that you, in order to get the most out of your well, that you have no idea how much water is down there, so they charge you 35, 45, or 85, $125 probably at this point for every foot that they have to drill down so that you can get your running water from your well on a homestead. If you don't live by a river or some water source. Arizona, New Mexico, there's some aquifers down there, but I'm sure the government is already. And no, there's some aquifers in the Midwest too, I think I've heard. Yeah, it's a lot of work. And imagine being in your late 40s, 50s, 60s, you got 5-10 acres of land, or probably less than 5 acres, maybe an acre or two, but you have all this produce you got to harvest now. And it's only you and your wife. It's only you and your one kid, and your kid wants to leave and start his own family, and so you're left behind doing all the work. That's why 60, 70, 80 years ago, people would have 10, 11 kids. But people aren't doing that anymore. The birth rate is literally on decline. My principal, we had a conversation about it, because districts all over the country are combining grade levels now because there's just not enough student bodies. Every child brings in, I think, $5,000-$6,000 each child to the school. So, that being said, I'm just telling you all and making you more aware. Go without electricity for a day. Light some candles. Learn how to can. Tend to some chickens. Roosters will humble you. They will humble you. Go clean out someone's garden bed or move someone's manure. Get in tune with the food that you that you buy all packaged up at the grocery store. See, we're all too busy for that. It's below us, right? It's below me. Am I gonna go to the store? It's inconvenient. I'm gonna order my Uber Eats, or I'm gonna do the grocery. I'm gonna send someone to go pick up my groceries and deliver them to me. Learn to go without, so that when you go within, you can hear and you can be led. You can observe. You can be guided. Don't get so bogged down by your distractions. That's the message. I'm not here to preach. I hope I'm not being preachy. For a child that was borderline mute, I definitely talk a lot now. Yeah, tell me what you think. I'm not trying to harp on any specific events. This event's gonna take place on this date. You need to do this. You need to do that. Listen here, man. Everyone is exactly where they're supposed to be at this moment. Exactly where they need to be. And it could be in the middle of a hell or heaven. But they're exactly where they need to be. So I'm not one to try to convince people to move cross country or leave the U.S. or stay in the U.S. or do anything. Really. Be your own person. I'm just saying what can I say without saying too much? It's best to learn how to go without comforts. It is best to learn. And really begin to investigate the power of community. And make sure that community isn't a cult. There, I said it. Yeah. Be sure. Because ask me how many cults I bumped into in my path. Ask me. Go ahead. I'll tell you. Cults are sneaky, man. They are sneaky. It can happen to anybody. It can happen to anybody. You're just like, I was just living my best self. And I found this group of people and they were really nice. And then 2 years, they locked me in the basement. No. This shit's real. Be careful out there, my dear ones.